What else did he have to say about the Tea Party? Let's listen. Cut 5, go.
There's a part of the Tea Party movement that actually did exist before I was elected.
Very little part.
We saw some of it leading up to my election. There's some folks who just weren't sure whether I was born in the United States, whether I was a socialist, right? So there's that segment of it, which I think is just dug in ideologically, and that strain has existed in American politics for a long time. Then I think that there's a broader circle around that core group of people who are legitimately concerned about the deficit, who are legitimately concerned that the federal government may be taking on too much. There's still going to be a group at their core that question my legitimacy.
That's enough. That's enough. Gee, he knows an awful lot about the Tea Party, doesn't he? Wow. He's got it all figured out, slice and dice. Doesn't much like the Tea Party, does he? But he loves whoever and is protesting in Egypt and whatever it is that they want. There was an extraordinary statement he made today, in part. Let's get number 2 ready, Mr. Producer. Extraordinary. This is Today, Obama. Cut 2, go.
The military has served patriotically and responsibly as a caretaker to the state, and will now have to ensure a transition that is credible in the eyes of the Egyptian people. That means protecting the rights of Egypt's citizens, lifting the emergency law, revising the Constitution and other laws to make this change irreversible, and laying out a clear path to elections that are fair and free.
Wow. Revising the Constitution and other laws. Make sure this change is irreversible, laying out clear path to elections, make sure they're fair and free, lifting the emergency law. I'm thinking here, first of all, they don't give a damn what he says. But putting that aside, his administration was held in contempt by a federal judge for violating a court order that violated our law. Anybody get the irony here? This is day 11 of our post-constitutional government, where the president utterly refuses to comply with a federal judge in northern Florida, in Pensacola, who's ruled that the health care law is void and he's not allowed to implement it. But he gets up there, and military is patriotically responsible. Now, Mr. President, if you're ignoring court rulings, are you serving patriotically and responsibly? I'm just wondering, because I don't think you are. It's not patriotic to ignore federal judges. You can disagree with them, you can continue to litigate. The rest of us can't ignore federal judges. No, I don't think it is. Then there is Ahmadinejad, or as I like to call him, Yaba Dabba Do. He's having a blast, this guy. They've increased the repression since the events in Egypt. I mean, they don't want that stuff spreading to them, whatever that stuff is. But they're very excited about what's going on in Egypt, just like the liberals and neoliberals in this country, citing Thomas Paine. Iran's president said today that Egypt's popular uprising shows a new Islamic Middle East is emerging, one that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad claims will have no signs of Israel and U.S. interference. The Iranian leader spoke as the country marked the 32nd anniversary of its 1979 Islamic Revolution, democratic uprising, that toppled the pro-U.S. Shah and brought hardline clerics to power. Yaba Dabba Doo's remarks came hours after Mubarak announced he's transferring authority to his deputy but refused to step down. Well, that's over now. He's transferred authority to a council of generals who will decide what to do. And I understand those generals are highly schooled in the works of Thomas Paine. Oh, yes. In fact, I think one of them is called Muhammad Akhtar Jefferson. There's also Abdullah Madison. Oh, yes, they're right there. They're sitting around the Council of Generals. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are the same generals who've instituted whatever Mubarak told them, during his 31 years of reign. There's not a Mother Teresa among them. And, of course, we hope beyond hope, that something comes out of this which will not be damaging to us, or our allies, or the Egyptian people. But it really is hope, isn't it? Doug Schoen is a very decent human being. I watch him on television from time to time, a moderate Democrat. He worked for Clinton, but I do understand he wasn't chasing interns. He goes through all these polls and all the data we have, which actually does define the citizenry and their desires in Egypt which the lib media have completely ignored because they're on the ground interviewing 3 or 4 college students. And he says in FoxNews.com, this is too long to read, but we'll link to it on MarkLevinShow.com, with Mubarak vowing to stay in power, this was the other day. Central question is, well, what happened when he leaves? And he goes through all these polls and everything, Zogby and Pew, and found some very ugly things. 60% of Egyptians have fundamentalist views. 20% are secular in their orientation. Egyptians also support a more expansive role for Islam in Egyptian life. Pew polling conducted last year. 48% say that Islam plays a large role in politics in Egypt. An overwhelming majority, 85%, say Islam's influence in politics is positive. Sounds like our group here, CARE. Only 2% say its influence is negative. Almost 2/3 of Egyptians told Zogby that Egyptian life would improve when clerics play a more central role in the political life of the country. Let's have a vote right now, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Like the Obama administration said the first time. Come on, we got to have democracy quickly. And then the next time, I mean slowly. And then the next time, I mean now. And then the next time, I mean a gradual transition with universal values. Bunch of doofuses. 84% say that apostates, or those who forsake Islam, should face the death penalty. 77% say thieves should have their hands cut off. 54% say men and women should be segregated in the workplace. Just like the American Revolution. You gotta love it. The Egyptian people clearly support a political agenda, he says, that can be described as radical. More than 7 in 10 said they were positive toward Iran getting nuclear weapons. In a July 2010 Zogby poll, close to 80% favor abrogating the Camp David Accords with Israel, meaning the Egyptians would arm up the Sinai Peninsula. Significant number of Egyptians are favorable to terrorist organizations, with close to half favorable to Hamas and 1 in 5 favorable to Al-Qaeda. Given this data, it's no shock, he writes, that the only group in Egyptian society that has any broad-based support is the Muslim Brotherhood. Their leader, Muhammad Badi, has not surprisingly said the Koran should be law in Egypt and that jihad was essential. He also said Israel and Zionism have to be resisted in every way possible with every resource at the disposal of the Egyptian people. What a peaceful, Democrat-loving group of leaders we have here. It's just swell. But don't worry, Obama says this needs to be peaceful, democratic, proper transformation. And I'm sure every one of these people are hanging on his every And I want to say this. If, miraculously, Egypt turns out to be some kind of democratic society that respects individual rights, that respects other religions, that develops a civil society, then we all have reason to be thrilled. If it doesn't, then we all have reason to condemn those in our government and out who have been utterly misleading and deceiving. You know, as I sit here and think about the unthinkable, if this were a known... Well, let me ask you a question. Let me put it to you this way. Why doesn't this administration and its liberal sycophants support revolution in Cuba? Instead, he lifts some of the restrictions on travel. Why don't they support revolution in Venezuela against the communist dictator who's getting stronger and stronger with his usurpation of authority there? Why doesn't this administration oppose the dictatorship in Bolivia? Why isn't it speaking out against the Marxist socialist agenda in Argentina? Why isn't it speaking out against Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua? Why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Don't you find this strange? I find it very inconsistent on the surface. But let's look below the surface, shall we? This is where it gets dangerous. I don't think this president would ever oppose a hard left government anywhere on the face of the earth. He couldn't have been more embracing of the murderous dictator who runs Red China. I mean, he was slobbering all over this guy. It was almost sexual. It was so disgusting. And yet, that's what it is. He praised it. Really cool over there. Just like that idiot Thomas Friedman from the New York Slimes. Now, giving all his unsolicited opinions about democracy in Egypt while embracing a ruthless, murderous dictatorship in China. Go figure. We'll be right back. Ramon, Irvine, California, the great KABC. Go.
Mark, it's an honor to speak to you, and just want to give you my opinion on what's going on in Egypt, because one thing that's kind of scary to me is there's a lot of useful idiots everywhere in the world now, just blankly supporting Egypt, not sure what's going on. But I'm a Christian from Egypt, and let me tell you, Mark, it hasn't been good under Mubarak, but I can assure you it's going to get much, much worse for the largest minority of Christians in the Middle East right now, the Coptic Christians. And let me tell you why. The Muslim Brotherhood, and I have great understanding of this because we saw them there day and night. I mean, this organization was brutal, and that's why they have to be controlled with an iron fist, is what Mubarak did. But this organization is one of the most deceptive Islamic organizations in the world, Mark. They will pet you with one hand and slice your head off with the other hand. They're not the guys with beards and turbans. They're the guys with suits and ties, and they will infiltrate any organization and say whatever they need to say. But, their goals are clear. One of the quotes that their leader made just last week was, a democracy is just a stage we have to go through, and they understand that very well. Just like Turkey's president said the same thing. It's a trolley you hop on and hop off once it's been used. So every useful idiot out there that thinks Egypt just got freedom, they're going to see a lot of tyranny coming up. And you cited a poll, I believe it was from Zogby, but that poll is not even, the numbers are a little bit lower. If you look at one of the Pew polls that was done in December, it shows 95% in Egypt. People in Egypt believe the country's not Islamic enough in politics. And all these numbers you said were a little bit lower. So needless to say, my family is in Egypt. I have hundreds of family members, doctors, lawyers, engineers. And trust me, Mark, not one of these guys left their homes in the last couple of weeks. They've been holed up in their houses watching stuff get destroyed.
Well, Ramon, did any reporter go speak to any of them? Any of the ABC News or CNN reporters talk to your family members?
Absolutely not, Mark. And you know where these guys are going. I see these CNN idiots talking about having tears in their eyes about what's going on in Egypt. But let me tell you, Mark, my family has not one member of my family, not one, even though we have some liberals in the family, not one of them joined these protests. So the guys you see in the streets are mostly, not even half a percent.
Ramon, I have to go. Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate it, my brother. Yeah, there's about 84 million people in Egypt. About 83.8 million were not in the streets. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. What do we know about this Google executive who apparently helped plan this, whatever it is? Anybody know what his politics are, his philosophy? I haven't seen anything on it. Maybe they can help us over there at the, maybe some of my friends, the neolibs, maybe they can give us some background information on him, put it out there. We know al-Baradei is a left-wing knucklehead, close to the Islamo-Nazis in Iran. So, rather useful idiot. But the guy Google, who's popping up, he's the guy! Okay. What do you know about him? I don't know, but he's the guy! Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I began the program, I said the so-called mainstream media, or the liberal media in this country, are constantly doing the people here a disservice. I'm going to give you a prime example. The first thing you're going to hear is a little clip from the ABC Radio News Network of a lady yelling in New York after Mubarak left how excited she is. Cut one, go.
We are free! We are happy! I'm very happy! Thanks God! Thanks God!
Okay. Now the local news reporter, WABC Channel 7, heard and reported this. Cut two, go.
We do catch a glimpse of why some people may be most afraid.
Jordan is next, and Israel is out. Jordan is next, and Israel out.
Why weren't both of those played on ABC Network News? You get my drift? You have an excited, probably pro-democracy lady there. Very earnest, you can tell. Very enthusiastic. And then you have some jerk driving by, also in New York, denouncing us and denouncing Israel. Actually, denouncing Jordan is next. Israel is done. So how come that didn't make it to the network news? There it is. It's on WABC Channel 7 for everybody to hear. I've now played it how many times? 3? Instead we get, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever, rather than, now it's Jordan, let's get the Jews too. Just pointing it out to you.